Before sleep, Leo added another item to the list on his phone. A severe case of procrastination, always waiting until the dead of night to shower. He scrolled up. In the days since the accident, he had meticulously compiled over 20 of Caleb's flaws. He figured that by the time he reached 50, he might finally be able to let him go. Caleb was his partner, the straight guy he'd pursued with a relentless, exhausting energy. Now, a car crash had wiped Caleb's memory clean. He'd forgotten he wasn't straight anymore, and he'd forgotten Leo. With almost no chance of recovery, the blow was catastrophic, like watching a painstakingly constructed tower of cards collapse just before completion. They were both strong-willed people who had spent years sanding down their own sharp edges to fit together. They had compromised and yielded, reshaping themselves for each other. Their life was just finding its rhythm, and then the progress bar reset to 0. Leo had been on a business trip when it happened. Rushing back, he'd found Caleb in his hospital bed, laughing and trading jokes with a pretty nurse. The diagnosis had already reached him on the road, but he'd held onto a sliver of hope it was some elaborate, cruel prank. That familiar yet utterly alien smile confirmed the grim reality. Caleb noticed him hovering by the door, his curious gaze sweeping over Leo from head to toe before offering a polite, friendly nod. The detached gesture made the world spin, stealing the air from Leo's lungs. Caleb's mother steadied him, guiding him aside. For 2 years, she had simmered with resentment over Leo turning her son, only recently accepting their relationship with weary resignation. This accident, for her, was a godsend. She gripped Leo's hand, her voice a soft entreaty, pleading with him to release his hold on Caleb, to let him return to a normal life. Erasing someone from your world was shockingly simple. Deleting message histories, purging photo albums, informing mutual friends. Caleb had left a considerable amount of his life in their small apartment. Leo packed it all into boxes and arranged to drop them at the family home, confirming with Caleb's mother that he wouldn't be there. But as he was leaving, the elevator doors slid open, and there he was, dangling his car keys, his eyes meeting Leo's. He let out a small, surprised sound and then told Leo it was him, stepping aside to make room. He asked if Leo was there to see him, assuring him he was fine now and thanking him for coming. Leo quickly schooled his features into a neutral mask and stepped out of the elevator. He explained that he'd heard about the accident from Caleb's mother. Caleb seemed to hesitate, a touch of embarrassment on his face. He apologized, explaining he'd lost a few years of memory and couldn't quite place who Leo was. He ventured that since Leo had visited him at the hospital and his home, they must have had a good relationship before. He guessed they were colleagues. Though he'd braced himself for it, the words landed like a blunt instrument, a dull ache spreading through his chest. Leo fought back the wave of emotion, keeping his voice steady as he told him yes, they'd been on the same project team. He introduced himself as Leo and offered to help him get back up to speed when he returned to work. Caleb's expression relaxed into a grateful smile. He thanked him and asked, out of pure politeness, if he wanted to come back upstairs for a bit. The invitation conjured a ghost of a memory. Early in their relationship, Caleb had brought him home, and Leo had lingered on the sidewalk, hugging a lamppost, too terrified to go up. Caleb had simply thrown him over his shoulder, carried him into the elevator, and cornered him against the wall where he had nowhere to run. He had laughed then, assuring him his mom didn't bite, and if she did, he'd carry Leo out just as fast. Leo looked at the man before him, his smile now a mask of detached courtesy, and lowered his eyes. He said no, he had to go, and they would see each other at the office. Back in his car, he opened the Notes app again, his fingers trembling as he added another entry. A regression in taste. The cologne he chose was offensively cheap. Nearly 30 items now. He was more than halfway to his goal, but cataloging Caleb's imperfections did nothing to diminish his presence in Leo's heart. He leaned back against the headrest with a sigh. A sharp rap on the window made him jump. It was Caleb again. Leo lowered the window. Caleb bent down, his face level with Leo's. He said it was probably none of his business, but he wanted to know if Leo was really okay. He'd looked pale earlier. Leo rubbed his face and mumbled that he was just tired. Caleb then suggested he call a rideshare, mentioning that his own accident had been caused by a moment of distraction. No one knew where Caleb had been going that day. In the week before, Leo had sensed he was hiding something, but prying wasn't in his nature. Now, the person who knew had forgotten, and the secret was lost forever. Leo managed a thank you, finally able to return one of the many he'd received these past few days. He assured Caleb he was careful and valued his life. He didn't tell him that they weren't just colleagues. They'd also been roommates for a year in college. A serious illness had forced Leo to take a year off, and when he returned, he was placed in Caleb's dorm. He'd assumed it would be a quiet final year, with most students busy with internships or studying. But Caleb had barreled into his life. Mindful of Leo's recovery, he'd brought him meals, picked up materials from professors, and accompanied him to follow-up appointments. He even stood guard outside the shower, worried Leo might collapse. He'd always just said that's what good friends did. Before his illness, Leo never would have pursued a straight man. But after brushing against death, he'd shed his inhibitions. Life was for living, and he was going to be with the person he loved. If Caleb was straight, Leo would change that. He pursued him for over 6 months, right up to graduation, without success. On the day they were moving out, Leo placed 2 things in front of him: a job offer from the same company Caleb was joining, and a plane ticket back to his hometown. He asked Caleb to choose for him. Caleb glanced at them and told him to stop the pathetic chase. Leo's heart shattered. He grabbed his suitcase to leave, but Caleb seized his wrist and pulled him back. Leo stumbled onto his lap, and before he could react, Caleb's hand was at the back of his neck, and his mouth was on his, a firm, decisive kiss. He had broken away only to ask why Leo couldn't have just done that in the first place. Caleb returned to work 2 weeks later. The boss assigned someone else to help him get reacquainted with his duties. Amid a circle of welcoming chatter, Caleb shot a confused look in Leo's direction. Leo sat outside the group, sipping his water. His casual lie the other day had been taken as fact. Unsurprisingly, Caleb cornered him in the break room. He asked why Leo wasn't the one helping him. Leo feigned being busy, shoveling spoonfuls of powdered creamer into his mug to mask his unease. He explained that the team lead had assigned someone else who was very competent. But Caleb pressed on, saying he'd asked around and people told him he and Leo barely ever spoke, that their relationship wasn't good at all. Leo considered this for a moment before offering a sincere-sounding explanation. He told Caleb that people were right, but he was just the kind of person whose compassion overflowed easily. He'd even visited the office janitor when she sprained her ankle. Caleb fell silent, his gaze dropping to Leo's mug, which was now half full of white powder. He told him not to drink that the artificial creamer was bad for him. The tone, the instruction, for a fleeting second, it was as if he remembered. Caleb used to be strict about Leo's diet, forbidding junk food. Whenever a craving hit, Leo had to secretly order takeout, and he was always caught. The punishment for being caught was an exhausting night, Caleb's way of, as he put it, helping him metabolize the guilt. Leo just smiled, stirred the mixture in front of him, and took a large gulp. He remarked that he liked the cheap taste. Caleb's Adam's apple bobbed, swallowing words he clearly wanted to say. Leo told him to get back to work if there was nothing else. He didn't trust himself to stay there alone with him without saying something he shouldn't. As he moved to walk past, an arm shot out, wrapping around his waist and pulling him gently back. Leo blinked slowly, the moment stretching into infinity. The warmth of Caleb's body through 2 layers of clothing, the solid wall of his chest, the hot breath on the back of his neck. He froze. Caleb instantly pulled his arm away, looking down at his own hand in bewildered confusion. His handsome face flushed a deep red. He stammered out apologies, saying he didn't know what had just happened. A strange thought surfaced. His mind had forgotten, but could his body still remember? Their relationship had been a secret at the office. To everyone else, they were just two colleagues who kept to themselves. No one knew about their fingers intertwined in crowded elevators, their bold embraces in empty break rooms, or the kisses they stole in the copy room, shielded by the rhythmic hum of the machine. Perhaps they'd done it so often the motions had become instinct. His phone buzzed with a flood of apologetic texts. Leo patiently replied that it was nothing to worry about, just a casual hug between colleagues, especially since they were both men. That seemed to placate him. A moment later, another message came through. Caleb was asking if the background on his social media was a picture of him and his girlfriend. Leo's heart leaped. He'd set privacy restrictions but forgotten to change the background. Luckily, it wasn't a photo of their faces. It was from a walk they'd taken one evening, a picture of their two shadows cast by a streetlight. As they walked between two lamps, their shadows would merge and then pull apart, over and over. He'd found it poetic and snapped a photo at the moment their silhouettes touched. Caleb had grumbled about the point of a picture of shadows but had patiently held the pose for him. Then turned Leo's face towards his for a kiss, daring him to post a picture of their faces instead. He quickly changed the background photo. It was an X, he typed. After a pause, he added another message. He told Caleb it was his first day back and he should focus on work. The leadership, however, had other plans. Caleb had once landed 2 massive deals for the company, making him a valued asset. They hadn't let him go after the accident, and that evening, they threw a welcome-back dinner for him. Leo sat at the far end of the table, watching him navigate the crowd with effortless charm. Caleb had always been popular. It was only after getting with Leo that he had deliberately shrunk his social circle. In a way, he was now back in his element. A hollow feeling grew in Leo's chest. He wondered if Caleb would have been happier without him. He downed his glass of wine, the burn searing a path down to his stomach. Only then did he remember he had driven. On the rideshare app, the driver's icon moved further and further away. Most of his colleagues had already left. In his periphery, he saw Caleb saying goodbye to their boss, then turning and walking toward him. Leo's nerves tightened. He tapped the call button on his phone, pretending to be deep in conversation. Caleb stopped a few feet away, watching him quietly. A tinny voice crackled from the phone, the driver informing him amidst a roar of wind that another, closer ride had been automatically assigned on a different platform, so he wouldn't be coming. He told Leo to cancel. Leo had already been waiting for nearly half an hour. He could have told him much earlier. The driver laughed, entirely unconcerned, telling him it was his own problem if he didn't cancel. The alcohol fanned Leo's temper, and he raised his voice, launching into a colorful tirade about the driver's lineage before the line went dead. As he was contemplating how to deal with the unreliable driver, his phone was plucked from his hand. "I didn't drink. I'll drive," Caleb said, holding out a hand. "Keys." Perhaps it was the naturalness of his expression or the simple logic of the offer, but Leo didn't refuse immediately. They were 2 blocks down the road before he realized how inappropriate this was. The light turned red, and the car stopped smoothly at the crosswalk. During the long 60-second wait, Caleb's gaze fell on a pair of custom block figures on the dashboard. They were a gift from the last Valentine's Day, abstract but recognizably 2 men. To distract him, Leo quickly commented on how cold it was. Caleb turned to him. "Cold?" he asked, then reached out instinctively and adjusted the climate control. After he did, he froze. "That's weird," he murmured. "Your car feels familiar to drive." "Damn it." Leo didn't dare say another word. The rest of the drive was silent until they pulled into the parking garage. He breathed a sigh of relief, planning to call a car for Caleb, but he saw him repeatedly tapping his dark phone screen. "Leo," Caleb said, "my phone's dead. Can I come up to your place to charge it for a bit?" Leo immediately tried to refuse, saying he could just call a car for him, that it was his responsibility anyway since Caleb had driven him home. But Caleb insisted the drive back to his place was long, and he wouldn't feel safe without a working phone. Leo was out of excuses. He cursed himself for not keeping a charging cable in his car. Caleb hadn't been back to this apartment since the accident. As the elevator doors opened, his next-door neighbor was heading out with a bag of trash. The neighbor's eyes darted from Leo to Caleb, a flicker of surprise on his face. He remarked that he hadn't seen him in a long time. Leo cut him off quickly, explaining that work had been crazy, with early mornings and late nights. He pushed Caleb inside and told the neighbor the trash chute was probably about to close. The neighbor looked like he wanted to say more, but just nodded and left. Leo was screaming internally. This was a mistake. He could never bring Caleb here again. He had to get him downstairs as soon as possible, before he ran into anyone else he knew. He was being too soft, again and again, after he'd promised Caleb's mother, that he would let him go back to his old life, the straight, normal path, free from Leo's interference. So, why did you two break up? Leo's hand froze as he was getting slippers for Caleb. Caleb was leaning against the wall, taking off his shoes. It sounded like a casual question, but his expression was serious. If he looked closely, he'd see 2 pairs of sneakers Leo had bought for him on the shoe rack. Several ties Leo had picked out for him in the closet, and the 2 jackets hanging by the door were a matching set. Leo had kept them, afraid that sending back items so marked by his personal taste would cause complications. She cheated on me, Leo said. Caleb looked surprised, then seemed to search for the right words of comfort. He settled on telling him she had poor judgment and that the next one would be better. Leo glanced at him, imagining the look on his face if he ever found out that the ex with poor judgment was him. He bit his tongue. He simply told Caleb not to talk about her like that. Don't talk about yourself like that. He had no intention of letting Caleb stay long. He handed him a fast charger. Caleb's expression was earnest as he said that Leo was a genuinely good person who deserved better. For a moment, Leo saw the Caleb he had first met, the one who had so enthusiastically worked his way into Leo's life, breaking down his defenses. This was dangerous. They were repeating the same pattern. Caleb was still talking, mentioning a recent high school reunion where many of his female classmates had turned out to be beautiful and, more importantly, single. He offered to set Leo up if he was interested in getting back out there. Leo decided it was time to give this cluelessly straight man a shock, to make him back off for good. That might be a problem, he said. Caleb laughed, waving a hand dismissively. No way. A guy like you? You could find someone in a second. Because I'm into men. Caleb's hand froze mid-air, his eyes wide. My ex was a man, too. We did everything couples do. Right here in this apartment. Wait, Caleb's face was inexplicably flushed, his eyes darting around as he stammered. Yes, I'm gay. Leo took a step toward him and watched, not surprised, as Caleb instinctively took a step back. Still want to set me up? At first, Caleb tried to laugh it off, but seeing that Leo was serious, he couldn't meet his eyes. The air grew thick with awkwardness. Caleb unplugged his phone. He forced a smile and commented on how fast the charger was. He was already at 50%, enough to get home. Leo nodded and offered to walk him down. Caleb refused vehemently, telling Leo to get some rest. Leo heard the neighbor's door close a few minutes earlier, so he didn't insist, just crossed his arms and watched Caleb's hasty retreat. That night, he dreamed of the first time he told Caleb he was gay. They were already best friends, the closest of brothers. Leo had prepared for the worst. Disgust, rejection, being outed to the entire campus. But Caleb had done none of those things. After the initial shock, he'd gone out to the balcony to think. When he came back, he had looked Leo in the eye and told him seriously that he respected his orientation but couldn't return his feelings. He had said if Leo wanted him to stay, they could still be friends, and he would be there for him until he found someone else. It was that moment that sealed Leo's resolve to win him over. He woke as the sky was just beginning to lighten, staring at the ceiling, his heart heavy. The list of flaws on his phone remained untouched. He knew it was useless. He was still completely, hopelessly in love with him. The heat of their relationship had cooled into a one-sided crush. The man who once shared his bed every night was now just a colleague he couldn't look at for too long. He didn't know how long it would take to get over this. He only knew that the constant, bitter ache was becoming unbearable. The lack of sleep left dark circles under his eyes. A meeting in HR left him feeling even more drained. Negotiating the terms of his departure from a company he'd been with for so long was exhausting. One more month. Then they would go their separate ways. But his resolve wavered a minute later when he found a coffee on his desk. He knew who it was from but still asked the person at the next desk. It was from Caleb, for everyone in the office. The group chat was filled with thank you gifts. A message from Caleb popped up on his screen. He said Leo hadn't been at his desk, so he'd taken the liberty of ordering for him and offered to get something else if he didn't like it. Leo took a sip. The smooth, rich flavor was a small comfort. He texted back a thank you. A long while later, another message appeared. Caleb wanted to have lunch together. He said he'd thought a lot last night and wanted to talk. Leo sat up straighter, glancing over at Caleb, who was staring intently at his own screen, his shoulders tense. Figuring he didn't have much time left anyway, Leo agreed. He wouldn't have agreed if he'd known Caleb was taking him to a place that served kale and quinoa bowls. He poked at a cherry tomato as the smell of gourmet tacos from the shop next door wafted over. Caleb watched his face anxiously, offering to order something else. Leo declined, asking if a lecture on healthy eating was what Caleb had spent all night thinking about. Caleb quickly denied it, then stammered that he wanted to apologize for his reaction the other night. He insisted he didn't mean any harm, he was just, "It's fine," Leo cut in. "I don't really care what you think." The bluntness of his dismissal stunned Caleb into silence. The words were cold, but as someone about to exit his life completely, Leo figured it was better if Caleb didn't hold a favorable impression of him. He added that the food was terrible, paid the bill, and walked out. Caleb followed, apologizing and promising to pick a better place next time. Leo didn't understand why he was so insistent on a next time. He had thought he could handle this, watching from a distance as Caleb found a different kind of happiness. But he couldn't. So he said things to push him away, to make him recoil, before disappearing completely. Yet Caleb persisted. As they reached the office building, Caleb, who had been walking silently behind him, finally spoke. "Leo, I dreamed about you last night." Leo's head snapped around. He had a bad feeling about this. Dreamed what? A blush crept up Caleb's neck, spreading across his face. It was clearly not an innocent dream. "I don't know why," Caleb began, his voice low, "but I feel this constant pull to be near you. And after that dream, I think maybe I'm not entirely straight." Leo's face remained a placid mask, but inside, a storm was raging. His entire body trembled. Was it possible? Was he starting to remember? Could they? He looked up and met Caleb's cautious, hopeful gaze. His eyes were so much like his mother's. The roaring tide in his chest suddenly went still. He remembered that same cautious look in his mother's eyes as she begged him to let her son live a normal life. "So, Leo," Caleb continued, "can I confirm something?" "Confirm what?" Caleb hesitated. "I want to hug you again. Like in the break room." Leo took a deep breath and a step back. "Don't joke about things like that. It's disrespectful to yourself and to me." The company moved fast. The day after he submitted his resignation, they hired an intern for him to train. His departure wasn't announced. Colleagues just assumed he was busy. The intern, Finn, was fresh out of college, with a sweet-talking innocence that bordered on incompetence. He couldn't do anything right, and Leo spent the entire day cleaning up his messes, so swamped he barely had time to breathe. As Leo finally leaned back with a mug of tea, Finn sidled up to him, his voice low. He asked if he was an annoying person. Leo, thinking his critiques had wounded the kid's ego, was trying to find a gentle way to express his dissatisfaction with HR's hiring choices when Finn continued, his voice full of grievance. That guy over there keeps giving me death stares. That guy was Caleb. He wasn't at his desk right now. In fact, only he and Finn were left. It was lunchtime. Leo was grateful for the intern's presence. It gave him an excuse to decline Caleb's lunch invitations, though Caleb hadn't asked today. His words yesterday must have hit their mark. "Don't worry about him," Leo started to say. "Are you hungry? Let's go." A large takeout container landed on his desk. "You guys looked busy, so I brought something back." He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The intern's eyes lit up. "Tacos. My favorite." Caleb beamed. He told them the place had a discount for new customers and that he should go, mentioning the line was long. Then he looked at Leo expectantly. "I was a little slow yesterday. I didn't realize this was what you wanted to eat." He gestured toward the break room. "It's a bit messy. I'll take it in there for you." Finn let out a dramatic groan and shot a glare at Caleb's retreating back. "Dude," he whispered to Leo, "is he trying to hit on you?" Leo choked on his tea, doubling over in a coughing fit that felt like it would expel a lung. Finn undid the top button of his shirt and started patting his back to help him breathe. When he finally straightened up, he turned to thank the kid, only to find him standing a few feet away, eyes wide with the thrill of office gossip. The hands that had been soothing him belonged to Caleb. "I'm gonna go," Finn announced, grabbing his things. "You guys take your time." He fled, his laughter echoing down the hallway. Caleb's hand was still on his shoulder. Leo shrugged it off, but Caleb caught his wrist. "Leo, I don't think I need to confirm anything anymore."
"I'm definitely."
"Caleb," Leo said, his voice raspy from coughing. "This is workplace harassment." Caleb ignored him, stepping closer and placing Leo's hand against his chest. The strong, steady rhythm thrummed against his palm, sending a jolt through him. This body, it seems to have its own ideas. It really wants to hold you. Leo seized on his wording. "So that's not what you want? Then you should learn to control your body. Don't be ruled by your base instincts." "No." Caleb denied it fiercely. "That's not what I mean. I understand now. This is what I want. I want to hold you and kiss you and, whoops, forgot my keycard. Can't get out of the building." Finn burst back in, snatched his card from his desk, and retreated just as quickly. "Didn't hear a thing. Didn't see a thing." His cheerful voice faded down the hall. An awkward silence fell between them. Finally, Caleb spoke, his voice strained. "Leo, you're single now. Can you give me a chance to pursue you?" Day 28 before his departure, Caleb sent him hundreds of messages. Leo didn't reply. Day 27, Caleb bought tickets to a concert and invited him. He refused. Day 24, during a meeting, Caleb accidentally mirrored his laptop screen to the projector, revealing his browser search history. Dreaming about sleeping with a man, meaning how to pursue a gay man, tricks to make a man fall for you, most popular types of gay men, top-rated queer films. Leo quickly yanked out the cable. Day 15, it was pouring rain when they left work. Leo didn't have an umbrella and hadn't driven. Caleb squeezed past Finn to stand beside him, holding out a ridiculously small umbrella. Leo knew he kept a huge golf umbrella in his office. He asked if Leo wanted to share. Leo pretended not to hear and dashed into the downpour. He didn't expect Caleb to follow. He burst through the door of his apartment building and heard footsteps right behind him. He turned to see Caleb, just as soaked as he was. "Is your umbrella just for show?" Leo asked. "I was afraid you'd be gone by the time I opened it." "Caleb, this is pointless. Go home." Leo turned away from his drenched, puppy dog expression and walked determinedly inside. "Leo!" Caleb called out from the doorway, his voice thick. "I'm cold. And I think I'm getting dizzy." Leo scoffed internally. His browser history had taught him how to play the victim, too. But then he saw how pale Caleb's face was and his heart lurched. He'd forgotten Caleb was still recovering. He sighed, defeated. He told him to come in, take a quick shower, and then leave. Caleb pointed to Leo's own dripping clothes and told him to go first. Not wanting to argue, Leo said if he wasted another second, he could just stay out in the hall. Caleb disappeared into the bathroom. Leo opened his closet, found one of Caleb's old sweatshirts and sweatpants, and left them by the door. Caleb showered with remarkable speed, likely aware that Leo was waiting. He emerged looking flushed and energetic, not at all like a sick person. His face lit up when he saw the clothes, and he happily pulled them on. "Your clothes are so comfortable," Caleb commented. "They're not mine." Caleb froze. It took him a moment to understand, and his expression soured. "Why are you still keeping your ex's things? Can't you let him go?" He tore off the sweatshirt he had just put on and tossed it aside. "The taste is terrible anyway. Such an ugly color." Leo looked away, trying not to notice the flecks of muscle in his back. He was still thinner than before. "Whatever. It's not me who'll get sick." Despite his words, he nudged the thermostat up a few degrees. He told Caleb to close the door on his way out and shut himself in the bathroom. The steam filled the small space, and a wave of sadness washed over him. This felt like any other ordinary night. Sometimes he'd rush Caleb to shower so they could get into bed early and watch a movie, though the movie rarely held their attention for long. Caleb's solid body, his restless hands, his searing kisses, all of it, like this ordinary night, had become something unattainable. When he came out, Caleb was still sitting on the sofa. He wasn't surprised. Caleb said he would leave once the rain let up. The warm light of the living room cast a soft glow on his skin. Leo sighed in resignation and told him he'd find him something of his to wear, though it might be a bit tight. Caleb immediately stood up and followed him into the bedroom. Even as Leo rummaged through his drawers, he could feel Caleb's eyes scanning every inch of the room. He pulled out an oversized knit sweater and turned to hand it to him, only to find Caleb staring intently at the nightstand. He remembered. He'd left a half-used box of condoms there and forgotten to put them away. He subtly blocked Caleb's view. "Put this on and go home. You can return it at work tomorrow." Caleb's gaze dropped. He took the sweater, their fingers brushing. A jolt of static electricity snapped between them. Leo flinched back, but Caleb suddenly grabbed his hand, pulling him gently forward until his warm breath ghosted over Leo's eyelashes. "Leo, look at me." "Don't do that," Leo warned, trying to twist his wrist free, but Caleb's grip tightened. "I can tell he's still in your heart. I can do better than him. I can learn anything. The fastest way to get over someone is to start a new relationship. Give me a try. I think about you all day, all night. I'm going crazy. Just look at me. Please." Leo fought to appear calm, unmoved, but his body betrayed him. When Caleb gently cupped his face, he knew he should push him away. As he leaned in closer, he knew he should tell him to stop. When Caleb's clumsy, inexperienced lips met his, he knew he should run. He did none of those things. All strength drained from his limbs. His legs went weak, and he found himself clinging to Caleb's shoulders. Taking this as a signal, Caleb wrapped an arm around his waist and deepened the kiss. This was wrong. He had promised Caleb's mother he would leave him alone. He was supposed to be straight, to live a normal life. As Caleb guided him toward the bed, a phone began to ring. The sound jolted him back to reality, and he pushed Caleb away. The raw desire in Caleb's eyes was familiar. He was breathing heavily, wanting to ignore the call. Leo pushed him back again. "Your phone." Reluctantly, Caleb answered. A familiar female voice came through the receiver, asking him why he had stood up his date tonight. The heat in Leo's body instantly evaporated. "Mom, I told you I don't like her. Why do you keep pushing us together?" Caleb's voice was sharp with frustration. "No, I'm not coming back. You guys eat without me. I'm at a colleague's place. It's none of your business. No, you know him. He visited me at the hospital." "Leo." In that instant, Leo's blood ran cold. Caleb frowned, looked at him with confusion, and held out the phone. My mom wants to talk to you. Leo wanted to disappear. What had he done? He had just been kissing her son. If that call hadn't come, they might have. A month ago, he had promised her he would get out of Caleb's life. Leo? He looked up into Caleb's concerned eyes, took the phone, his mind a whirlwind of panic, shame, and regret. The line was silent, but the silence was an accusation, an attitude in itself. And into that silence, Leo gave his answer. Auntie, I know. I'll make sure he comes home. The call ended. I'm not leaving, Caleb said, trying to embrace him again. Leo dodged him. A wounded look crossed Caleb's face. You didn't reject me just now. You kissed me back. You feel something for me, don't you? Leo shook his head, pressing the phone back into Caleb's hand.
I'm sorry.
I miss him so much. I forgot to push you away. The light in Caleb's eyes died. Caleb didn't come to work the next day. He was sick. Leo didn't know how he got home that night, and he knew he shouldn't care. There was less than half a month left before he moved. It was better this way. But Caleb's sick leave stretched into a week. Even their boss started to worry aloud if Caleb was suffering from some lingering side effects of the accident. A colleague chimed in that they heard it started as a cold but turned into a persistent high fever. Another speculated that maybe the fever would burn away the amnesia. Leo's mouth slipped. Finn shot him a quizzical look. Something wrong, Leo? No. Where were we? He said, refocusing on the screen. Finn pointed to a line of code, then leaned in conspiratorially. So you didn't say yes? I guess having someone you're not into constantly chasing you would be pretty annoying. Annoying? It was mostly just bittersweet. He remembered his own relentless pursuit of Caleb, who had met it with a kind of resigned tolerance. Compared to Caleb, Leo knew he was the selfish one, bending someone to his will for his own desires. It was Caleb's love that had tempered him, taught him to consider someone other than himself. Love meant knowing when to let go. The office began to discuss visiting Caleb. Leo stayed out of it. After work, he went straight home. Time was running out and he needed to start packing. He was sorting through clothes when he came across the sweatshirt Caleb had thrown off, the one he'd called ugly. He paused, then sighed and pulled out his phone, finding the number of a colleague who had gone to visit. He asked how Caleb was. The reply was almost instantaneous. Terrible. Really bad. His mind went blank. He couldn't breathe. His hands started to shake. Bad how? What's wrong? Is it a side effect? You should go see for yourself. He paced his living room, frantic. He sent 2 messages to Caleb. No reply. He tried calling. No answer. His panic grew. How bad did it have to be for him to not even look at his phone? He took a few deep breaths, trying to calm his frantic heart, and dialed Caleb's mother. After his rambling, panicked questions, her response was unnervingly calm. She told him nothing was wrong, that Caleb was fine, and he didn't need to worry. Before he could ask more, she hung up. His mind reeled. The stories didn't match. He tried Caleb again. Still nothing. He couldn't wait any longer. Grabbing his jacket, he ran out the door. Maybe she was right, but he couldn't risk it. If something was truly wrong with Caleb, he would never forgive himself. He got to the house in record time and ran into Caleb's mother just as she was leaving. The look on her face was a complex mix of emotions. I told you. I'm sorry, Auntie, Leo said, his head bowed. I was just so worried. He expected a lecture, but none came. He looked up and saw her expression was one of weary acceptance. She handed him a key. He's in his room. He didn't have the energy for pleasantries. He took the key and ran upstairs. On the way up, he had a growing sense that something was off, but he couldn't stop himself. He burst into Caleb's room. It was dark. Caleb was lying on his side, his back to the door. Leo's heart hammered against his ribs. He circled the bed and saw Caleb wink at him with a grin. He understood immediately. But in that moment, the anger was overwhelmed by a profound sense of relief. He was okay. He turned to leave, but Caleb threw off the covers and scrambled to wrap his arms and legs around him, pulling him onto the bed. His nerves, stretched taut for so long, finally gave way. He was too drained to fight back. "You lied to me." I heard you were leaving. I figured this was my last chance. So I asked them to say that if you called." Of course. That explained the lightning-fast replies. He had been too consumed by worry to see it. "Leo, you care about me. Why do you keep pushing me away?" Caleb tightened his hold. "I made a bet with my mom. I told her if you came today, she could never interfere in my life again. I'm so glad you came." Leo was stunned. That explained her complicated expression. As he processed this, he felt something hard and cool slip onto his left ring finger. Caleb pushed it all the way to the base. A ring. It was a perfect fit. "I knew it had to be yours," Caleb whispered. "The jewelry store called a few days ago, asking why I hadn't picked it up. I must have been on my way to get it when the accident happened." The ring was light, but it felt impossibly heavy on his hand. "When I got it, I just knew it was for you." The engraving card said C+L. The information was too much to process. He instinctively denied it. The L could stand for anything. Caleb paused, then squeezed his hand tighter. "Leo, I'm not an idiot. Couldn't have been for anyone else. Are you still mad at me for forgetting you? Is that why you won't say yes? I hate myself for it, too. How could I forget you?" His voice grew softer, laced with pain. He gently brushed a thumb across Leo's cheek, and only then did Leo realize he was crying. Caleb traced a path of soft, reverent kisses from his wet eyelashes down his cheek. "Leo, let's start over." Caleb never regained his memory. After Leo agreed to be with him again, he started demanding details about their past. "So, who was usually on top?" Leo blinked, then lied without a flicker of hesitation. "Me." Caleb considered this for a long moment, then lay back on the bed with a look of heroic sacrifice. "All right, go for it." Then, just as things were about to start, he changed his mind, wrapping his arms around Leo in a whiny embrace. "Leo, can you let me have this one? I've only studied the theory for being on top. Once I learn the other part, we can switch, okay?" Afterward, he lay there, holding Leo, smugly asking, "So, am I better than the ex?" Leo never told him there was no ex. But it didn't seem to matter. He found a new job, and they no longer had to hide their relationship. They left for work together every morning, came home to cook dinner together every night, and lay in each other's arms to watch half of a movie. They were falling in love for the second time.